Hello and welcome back to the club. We are so happy to have you here. My name is Ashlyn Clark. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined here by one of my best girls in the whole world who literally traveled across the country to see me last week. I could not be more thankful to be here with Miss Katie Hoyt. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing amazing. We just wrapped our July wrap-up episode, so that is already available. Feel free to go listen to that if you want to catch up with us, hear about our time in Salt Lake City together, the move, how Ashlyn's doing, Susanna Tings, etc., etc. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to be talking about this book. It's been a very long time since we have recorded and talked about a book, so I'm excited.
I feel like it has been months. It just feels like it's been forever. And I think it's because we recorded our last one so early. Like, didn't we record it the month before it came out or something?
Yeah. So I think the last time we recorded was like late May. And now it's like almost late July.
End of July. So it has been forever. I knew it felt weird. And then just getting back to our remote setup, which is kind of how we started the whole thing, has been kind of a challenge today. But overall, I feel like the remote setup it's going to be good.
I think so too, especially because like we were dealing with a lot of echo and audio issues when we were in person, but I do miss you, obviously, like being at my house and sitting across from me.
Yeah,
and
of course. It's not going to be the same as like kikiing together over like, you know, having a little snacky before and like getting to see Tiber.
Yeah.
But that's okay. The good thing is that now we have really good audio. We're going to have it's going to just take you way less time on like the editing side, you know, Miss IT department. And we're going to have our episodes out hopefully a lot quicker.
Yes.
And if you haven't joined us on YouTube yet, we would love to have you. I just got a brand new background and I would love for you guys to see and comment on it. And Katie just redid her entire room of her office in this stunning lime wash. So you'll have to go over to YouTube to see that if you want.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not going to be in on the joke and like, ugh, yikes. That would suck for you.
That would be embarrassing.
Yeah. So I don't want to dilly-dally too long since we just dilly-dallied for 40 minutes or so on the last episode.
Go listen to our July wrap-up if you haven't yet. We would love to have you listen to that. I do spend a long time discussing my child and breastfeeding, and so if that's something that you're interested in listening to, all of the content is there. And then Katie really just kind of hinted on her travels here to Utah now that we're literally 30 hours away from each other. Like, I'm not okay.
Yeah, no, same. And I'm also 30 hours away from Susanna and I'm not okay. Like, and you've like been busy, which is not your fault, but like my Susanna content has been tanked.
I know. I'm sorry. I've really, really been slacking on getting videos of her doing stuff. And it's because I feel like I only see her at night. And so then I'm like not in the mood to video anything. But honestly, like being busy sucks. But also you don't realize how much being just an hour of a time difference away from someone matters so much. Like I'll call my sister at like 7 p.m. and she's like, oh, I'm like getting ready for bed. I'm like, what the fuck? It's 7. And she's like, no, it's 8. I don't know. It's just different.
No, I'm so glad you brought this up because I was thinking earlier when you were here, your last rotation, you had to be at the hospital at what, like 6 a.m.? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I would get my morning Snapchats from, 5:40 to 5:55 on your way to work. And then I would get up around 6:15, and I would have my morning content right there on my phone ready to go. That's not the case anymore because like I get up and you're still snoozing. I mean, I get up and it's 5 a.m. your time. Yeah. And to be fair, you do have to get up really early, but you're like getting ready for work at that time. And by the time you're on your way to work, like I'm working already. So
yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. So we used to have the morning to just like unload, unburden ourselves onto each other and like really just like get into the meat of our discussion. And that would all happen before like 8 a.m. And now at 8 a.m., I'm like running around at work, just like being crazy. But I don't want to complain too much because this is literally the job that I cried, prayed, begged for. And so
Right.
I'm just going to have to do it for the next 4 years and hope that I find something somewhere closer to home whenever the time comes to get like an actual attending position. But
Yep.
it was great to have you here. And if you guys want to hear about our Utah adventures, just head on over to our July wrap up. But if you have anything else you want to talk about, we can do that. Or if you want to jump into the book, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah, let's jump into the book. We'll do our author biography and our synopsis. And then I do want to do like a little segment, I guess, on audiobooks after we finish. And that will
Oh, I
make a
would
little
love
bit
that.
more
Okay.
sense to our listeners once we get there. But let's go ahead and do our author biography. So I'll read it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this book is Till Death by Miranda Lyn. Miranda Lyn is the best-selling author of the trending witch duology Unmarked, her debut series, Fae Rising, and now she ups the ante with Till Death. Miranda has spent the past 2 decades reading romantic fantasy novels and the last handful of years crafting similar worlds steeped in heartache, adventure, love, and loss. Her past work has taken her readers into the heart of a witch alongside the journey of a high fae, through the oceans with a siren, and now prowling the rooftops with Death's Maiden. And she owes it all to that one science teacher that made her write a paper on dirt and loved it so much he read it to the class, and then lectured her for missing class that day. But if not for him, because he probably doesn't deserve the credit since she missed the next day of class as well, then to that little old English teacher that swept her into a world of creative writing, the only class she never missed.
Shut the fuck up. Like, how is that actually available on the internet?
That came straight from her website. When I tell you, like, I've been so excited to read this out loud to you. And not to mention, 2 of the sentences start with the word and one of them starts with the word but. So, and I'm not someone who's like technically opposed to starting with a sentence with and or but when you did it 3 sentences in a row, and like
It's not really giving author
no,
the like, you know, she wrote this about herself. So why is it not better?
right. And
This is worse than the Hannah Brown one, not only in the, well, it's not as long as Hannah Brown, so I will give her, you know, a little bit of points back for keeping it brief. But we don't always have to thank our teachers for like humiliating us. Like, let me be the
No.
one to tell you it's okay to not thank them. They loved
And
it anyway.
also-
Even if you became nothing of yourself, like they lived to make fun of you. So no reason.
right. And
to bring it
also,
up.
Miranda, listen, I'm going to hold your hand while I say this. No one gives a fuck about your science teacher. I could have gone my entire life without knowing this, and I'm not better or worse for having known it now. It's like, shut up. No one cares.
Shut up. No one cares.
So,
It always pains me to read these whenever they're that bad, but also like, what, like, how is that available? Especially, I get it if you're KU, brand new, you want something cute and sweet out there about yourself on your own website, whatever. Let it evolve as you evolve. Like, if you're on your 3rd series of books and that's what your author biography sounds like, why would we want to read it?
yeah, no one cares.
If we were the type of people that looked at that before we read your book, we wouldn't have read the book. Luckily for you, we didn't do that.
That is a fantastic point. So, speaking of things that we don't read, would you like to read our book synopsis?
Absolutely. Okay. So have we said this is Till Death by Miranda Lyn? Have we even said that?
Yes.
Part? Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the synopsis. Beyond the realms of gods, 2 cities stand at the brink of despair, and a dark destiny awaits Death's new maiden. Long ago, Requiem was plagued by a war and abandoned by the gods, but Death saved the suffering people, giving each soul 100 years of immortality. With that grace, he also sent 2 maidens, one of life for healing and comfort, and one of death, the only person in the world with the ability to kill. Generations later, the Life Maiden is missing, and Princess Deianira is nothing more than a trained weapon, a hunter, a murderer wrenched into death's dark court to have the name of her next victim seared onto her palm. She is the enemy of this land, but when she's given the chance to bring peace through marriage and finally show her father's kingdom her worth, she is viciously tricked into marrying the wrong man, ruining the future of the damaged realm. Her only hope to give something back to the world is to find the missing Life Maiden. Now, eternally bound to her enemy and dragged into the dark burlesque show her new husband is bound to, she must fight to keep herself free. And her heart, especially when she becomes the hunted.
Wait. Okay. The and her heart literally didn't make any sense, like grammatically, but.
No, it didn't. And how many times are we going to say this before we literally like pass out from being blue in the face? Shut the fuck up on these synopses. Like, tell me a little glimpse, pull me in, get me intrigued, and then move on. And if I decide to read it, I'll read it.
Right. I felt like she was like off to a good start, kind of like
it really
setting
did
up the
start
world
pretty
for
well.
you. But then like, shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Stop telling us the whole thing.
Why is this 5 paragraphs long? Like,
yeah,
I
don't know, because it's not like the book
need.
it's not like this is a book that's like that. I mean, it's 600 pages. It's not anything extraordinary. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so that's that. I mean, it just seems like in general, she needs to learn how to like zip it.
Totally. And also she needs to learn how to start a sentence with the word and, because like the subject, I don't know, like it grammatically it's wrong. So that really threw me at the end there.
Yeah. And it feels like she is almost opposed to using like, I don't know what they're called in the sentence, the context of a sentence, but like the little hyphens where you can like include.
Yeah.
I can just Google this real quick. It looks like they're called, I don't know, M dash.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what she could use.
Space dash. Just to include the rest of her thought instead of having to, splice it on the end of a sentence with literally no punctuation. That could be a good idea.
Yeah. So just some food for thought, Miranda. Take that for what it's worth from 2 random girls.
Random girls. I will say, if you're watching on YouTube, I didn't bring this up earlier. I do have my very massive laptop in my lap because I'm looking at my notes because I'm a fucking dumbass and didn't realize that I don't have an iPad anymore. So I have no way of looking at my shit because obviously we need the 4K quality of my phone video. So I'm like getting ready to set this podcast up and I'm like, I need another device. Like, do we have anything? I'm like, no. So if y'all see me next month with my little QVC Kindle that Katie has, it's because it was on Amazon Prime sale. The Findle.
It's seriously the best with the pop socket. I'm obsessed with. Oh my God. Sorry, tangent. But the last time we recorded for whatever reason, we started the recording and then we gabbed for literally like 15 minutes on the recording. I should have cut the clip of me talking to you about my pop socket because it was so funny. And like, I just sit here and the entire time we're recording, I don't know if you can, when it pops closed, it is the best feeling. Like,
it has to be a certain type of popping close though. Like some of them don't hit right, but sometimes whenever it just like slams all the way, wow.
And you can
really
like feel those, you can feel those ridges kind of pop into place. And so the whole time we're recording, like you can't see my hands, but I am opening it and closing it at least 600 times. So anyway, okay, moving on. So I want to quickly talk about audiobooks. And the reason is that you, due to crazy circumstances, read this book through audio. I don't know how else to word that. You listened to the audiobook for a lot of this book.
Yes.
And so curious to hear your experience on that. And then I have a couple points that I wanted to make. But first, what did you think?
Yes. So I have only ever listened to 2 other books on audiobooks before, and it wasn't really my thing, mainly because I'm a person that like drifts off in my own thought very often, and especially listening to a book when it like sparks your own interest, I will like days kind of in my own little thoughts, and then I will miss half a chapter. So then I have to rewind. So I'm not really like the best person to say yes or no on audiobooks. But what I will say is that this one of the 3 I've listened to had the best voice narrators that I've ever heard.
Okay, that's
So
great.
it was awesome, which is crazy because it's KU. So I didn't know for sure if like it was going to be any kind of good quality. But I listened to it on just like a free library app. And there was a female and a male voice actor. I guess is it narrator, whatever they do. But they were like full-blown voice actors. So each of the male characters had their own cadence and their own like different voice, and then all the female ones did too, but it was just the 2 people. It was very, very well done.
Okay, that is extremely interesting. And honestly, props to her for setting that up. And also, like, I did not bring this up because I thought that was a good point. Like, I literally didn't know that until you told me just now. That's such a good way to do things because I feel like, at least in my experience in these kinds of books, typically the narrator is a woman because usually it is from a female point of view that we're reading these books from. So that's like a fantastic strategy for her because I feel like a lot of times like the woman when she does the male voices is just like kind of cringe, and she obviously changes her voice, and but this is the point that I'm trying this is the point I'm trying to get to. I am curious if people who listen to audiobooks tend to rate things differently, and by differently I mean better, because they did not have the opportunity to like see how things are written out and like experience reading them like with their own eyes, and seeing like grammatical errors or like phrasing things. I feel like sometimes if you just change your tone of voice and you say it outwardly, things can sound better. Whereas like if you're reading something, it can be really difficult to like comprehend. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And especially for this book, I know exactly what you're saying because there were some days where I did have time to actually read. And so I just like preferred to do it. So I was doing that. And I felt like when I was listening to the book, I caught almost no grammatical errors. And I don't know if it's because whenever that final script to them was delivered, it was like different or like edited.
Yeah.
But there was like no missing words, no extra words. But I found them pretty often as far as like just typos and stuff in the book whenever I was reading it. And also there was sometimes like a lack of punctuation that makes my brain have to work a little bit harder to understand what's happening, but the people were saying it such that like they were like enunciating the right things or having the right sentence cadence or whatever, to where you could tell it was the separate part of a sentence. But if you were just reading it, like you would never know.
Yes, it's almost like the audiobook version is more refined because the person got to do it again. Whereas like me, in my mind, if I'm reading something and the sentence doesn't necessarily flow the way that like I would have spoken it, and I have to go back and reread it to kind of figure out like how the words make sense together in that order, that's like points off for me. Whereas if you're listening to the audiobook version, like the person just says it completely normal and it's really easy to understand, and you just kind of don't even have a passing thought about it and move right along. And in particular, KU, because obviously they tend to not have as much editing as traditionally published books. So I think that because this book is a recommendation that I got from multiple people who are audiobook listeners, and because now that you say that, I remember that like this book was sent to them in PR, and I think there was like a really heavy audiobook focus. Like I think that it came with like headphones and like all this specialty stuff kind of focused around the audiobook. And if she had male and female narrators, then she kind of like went above and beyond to really make sure that this was like super well done in the audio version.
Yes, the listening experience was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Okay, so this will be really interesting then to see, because I feel like those people who I got this book recommendation from rated it higher than I have rated it. And they're people who I generally trust and have like very similar experiences with books with. So we'll see. We'll get into it. But yeah, just curious your thoughts on the audio of it all.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think if you have, well, obviously you guys have already read this, so never mind. But if this was like a question of whether or not you should like try audiobooks, I think it is worth it. I do Hoopla, which is free through my library, and Libby, but Libby sometimes has really long wait times on getting books, especially ones that are like, you know, getting traction online. So if you're ever like in a place like me where you're super busy and you're like, I just want to just listen to something kind of mindless, and you're done listening to all of our podcasts, then you should definitely like, you know, pick out a book that's one of the free ones and just take a listen, because sometimes they're good. But also I'm sure that there's like resources out there that tell you which ones are actually worth listening to, because the other two that I've listened to have no male or female counterpart, like, you know, depending on what the actual protagonist is. And it makes it really, really hard to get into like the male or female characters that aren't voiced by their like respective gender.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Such a good point. I said this the last time. It was A Fate Inked in Blood was the one that I said I was going to go just like listen to a snippet to. I've got to. Like, I got to just go back and listen to
no, do the sex scenes. Because the sex scenes are crazy because they have like the Nordic accent. It was something else. But the fun part is like, I would be like driving down the road and something crazy would happen in this book and my jaw would literally drop and I'm like just like dying. It just makes it more fun to do like normal mundane things.
Yeah. And to also something that I hadn't thought about is like when you're reading with your eyeballs, I don't know if everyone has this, but mine cheat sometimes against my will.
Yes.
The audiobook, like you have no choice. You know cheat. is what you're hearing. My eyeballs cheat sometimes and I'm like, fuck, I'm like, why? Now I just saw the name of somebody or, you know, whatever is going to happen next. But yeah, and that's a really good point where I'll have to
like literally cover up stuff on my book. Same. But yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into our character lineup. So we'll start with our main character, Deyanira. What were your thoughts?
Okay. I just want to commend Miss Girl on like the actual idea of a death maiden and like that being the protagonist, the person that you're supposed to love.
Yeah.
I thought this was a really, really cool. What's the better word for idea? Like, what am I trying to say? Like
concept.
It was a really cool concept. Yes. Thank you. And like, I think obviously I'm going to have critiques no matter like who writes in a book. Like I'm going to have shit to say, but great job on the concept. I couldn't have like thought about a better one myself. The only thing that I have to say is like, I felt like because she was so guilty all the time for being a death maiden and she like harbored a lot of guilt and jealousy and stuff about just like being lonely, I found her really hard to relate to at times. And so I felt like I was compelled to like her and like be on her side and just be all for her. But I found her really, really hard to like crack.
That is such an interesting point. I had not previously thought about that. Like, yeah, that's not anything that we've ever had to like experience before. So
yeah, but it's not even really, it's hard. What did you feel about before I like really, really go deep? Like, what did you think? Did you like her?
So same exact thing. Like I felt so bad for her that she was in this position to begin with. Like that is a miserable, miserable life. No one likes you. She has no friends because literally everyone is scared of her and like for good reason. But you can't just go out and say like, oh no, trust me. Like I'm good because
because you never know who death is going to tell you to kill next. Yeah, you
Exactly.
She probably was just like so nervous to even make a friend because she thought that she was going to have to kill them eventually.
Exactly. I felt so bad for her. I am a little bit confused because in the book synopsis, it says that Death was the one in charge of the Death Maiden and the Life Maiden. That's not what I gathered from this. And I'll kind of get into that. Some things were like a little bit confusing. But like overall, like I did like her. I feel like, especially recently, I've not enjoyed a lot of our female main characters that much. And she was a nice break from that. Like, it was nice to have somebody that I wasn't like, oh my God, like you were the biggest idiot in the whole wide world. And just like she wasn't doing things that were, I don't know, like she obviously shouldn't be doing. At first, I thought that she was overselling, like, yeah, I'm such a badass, like I'm a cold-blooded killer. But then once the concept kind of like got explained and I understood, it was just like, that's just the nature of who she has to be in this world.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about her too. Like, how to say what I'm trying to like. I get it. Like, she is a killer. She's like made to be death's weapon, blah 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 blah. The way that this main character like says things is not necessarily the way that I like things to be delivered. Like, we weren't really vibing on like the way she said, like the things that she said in general, but also like her attitude. I know that like you, I wanted to feel so bad for her because I'm like, this shit sucks. You're killing all these people. No one wants to be around you. Everyone's scared of you. Everyone blames you for everything. Like, I felt like even when we were supposed to quote get to know her, like throughout the book, she wasn't opening up enough for us to actually learn things about her and like get to know her. It was always this wall of like, I'm Death's Maiden. I am forever guilty. And it was like and maybe it was because she never really had a real friend or a real meaningful relationship. She just like wasn't giving. She wasn't very open to like receiving that, I guess. And so as a reader, but it was hard. It's also hard because I was listening. It just felt like everything was very one-sided from the opposite perspective. Like, everyone around her was giving her stuff and she was just like, nope, this is beyond my like capacity.
Okay. Yes. I also felt like for all of the characters and all of the relationships, things were a little bit like not, I guess, underdeveloped, but like there was no depth to anything. Like, you don't necessarily get to know like deeper emotions or feelings or like experience or anything. And that's actually a theme that I felt throughout the entire book. I felt like visuals were not explained well. Like, I just had a really...
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think the same thing. Because wasn't there a map, but there still wasn't like
she
I don't know
wouldn't...
what the Syndicate house looks like. I don't know what the Opera House looks like.
She would give explanations of things enough to where I could like get a mental image, but like when I tell you my mental picture is very, very, very like elementary in, I guess, like detail, or I don't know. Like, I'll wait and save that for later. But like, I can barely picture like anybody, like the Syndicate house. I have such a hard time imagining what it looks like. I don't know. And I felt like the entire time, we'll get into like the romance, but like nothing I felt like had any like really deep emotional feelings. The only person who I felt like she had any kind of real connection with, or like that pulled on my heartstrings, was Hollis. That was the only one that I've actually felt like feelings about.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Like, there were times where I felt like real feelings, but it was never like in the way that I expected to or that I wanted to, because this is a romantic novel. Like, I want there to be like romance tugging at my heart.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I just felt like it was, I don't know. I'm having mixed emotions. I liked her. I did not love her, nor did I think that there was anything like outstanding or like super amazing or great about her. I think that she just wrote like a fine character that I can't really find like a flaw with necessarily. But I agree with
Yeah.
you. Like the concept of the Death Maiden was so cool. And also kind of like the dueling cities. Like I thought that was cool at first, but then I started to get a little bit like this world needs to be bigger. Like it seems like there is quite literally nothing outside of these two very small cities that live side by side.
There isn't anything else. But the thing is about that, like, it never really, to me personally, after the beginning, it never came into the forefront of the plot in like an important way. Like I kept waiting for there to be like the cities are warring and we have to, like there's just like got to be a reason that it's important that the cities are separate. But to me, that just never happened.
Completely agree. There are so many things in this book that were brought up, and I thought, okay, like I need to keep that in mind, and it wouldn't play out.
And then it never it never mattered. That bothers the shit out of me. Like if you're gonna bring up things in the plot that feel important, like
it's
why?
like it's giving loose ends, but I can't describe. I have honestly never had this experience with another book before. I've never felt this way before. Like so many authors, for example, like A Fate Inked in Blood, we kept going on and on about how it was underdeveloped, but she developed things in a different way than this author did. But there's things, I don't know. It's like this author did develop things and then they literally died and you never heard from them ever again. Like I've never experienced this before in a book. Like I'm really confused about how I feel about things and how, I don't know.
But the thing is about this book, there's the way that I want to feel about it and the way that I actually, like what my actual experience led me to feeling. And they're at war for sure.
100%.
But let's save our final ratings till the end.
Okay.
Let's talk about Oren since
Okay.
we're already diving into the romance a bit. How did you feel about like Oren's character in general?
Okay. Oren's character in general, what a roller coaster. At first, I was like, please tell me this is not the male main character. When he sneaks into her room and he's like so sweet and she calls him Icky and all that happened. I don't know if you remember when we were on that hike, I was like, I really liked the book. And then like we came to like a standstill with how I felt about it. I was like, there's no fucking way. Like I was like, I will hate this book if this is the path that we're going down. Thank God she turned it around and he ended up like actually hating her. And this was all a ploy. So then my feelings changed again. And then I thought that he was like really hot when she describes like at the syndicate house and she has to go bathe in the river and like he comes out there. I was like, oh my God, like this is going to be good because we're still early on. Like they don't really know each other that much. And then things shifted. Do you recall when they fell in love? Because
I am so happy that you brought this up because that's what I put in my notes. Like the romance fell from the fucking sky. Literally, he hates her. Then he says, I'm in love with you. And she's like, am I in love with him? Like, no, you're not. You don't know him.
literally when they started to like each other, I was like, did I black out while reading this?
I literally like there were points where I like paused the recording, pulled up the book on Kindle and was like, am I like scrolling through? Like, did I miss something here?
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing there. It was just, she thought it was time 40% through the book that they have some sort of feeling about each other and boom, they do. But that's not how fucking things work.
Oh my God. Like I was so confused. And I talked to someone else who read the book and she was like, it's just like implied all of a sudden that they love each other and you're just supposed to go along with it. It's like, no, like I'm like, you don't understand. The buildup is what we came for. That's why we are seated here waiting for you to guide us through this journey. Like, I was so lost.
I was so lost too. And I'm having deja vu because we had this exact same take about a fate inked in blood. Because again, out of nowhere, they're confessing their love in this big soliloquy. And you're trying to figure out where those feelings came from. You don't, there's absolutely no even hint that these people even like each other, much less are like developing some sort of deeper feeling.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really felt that way with all of the characters. I felt like relationship building, like, literally didn't happen. The only one was Hollis because he never hated her. Like, there was never a point in time where he was mean to her. So just like from the jump, you don't have to develop that one. I don't know. Like, I was so confused and I was like, surely I missed something. Maybe I forgot, or maybe I misread. Like, because I feel like the turning point was supposed to be when they were locked in the tunnel together, like between the warehouse and the stage, and they finally like come to an agreement about things. That needs to be like, okay, well, now we've started to move past things, but like we're still skeptical of one another. No, like,
Nope, love. True love. And then like all of a sudden she loves him enough to like be jealous of him and stuff. Look, here's the thing that got me so excited was whenever this first all happened, I had the same experience as you where like I was like, this is too easy, that he's just walking into her room, confessing his love, like what a freak. I don't want him to be the main character or whatever. Then I'm like, oh, he hates her. She killed his dad and brother. I'm like, this is how you write an enemy. Like, this is going to be good because this is like ultimate enemies. You've killed everyone he loves. There is no coming back from this. I can't wait.
Wait, I have a question.
There was no coming back from it. Like, it was just all forgiven.
Yeah, 100%. But am I forgetting? Because he says you killed my brother and my father. Who was the father?
No, he made it up. He came back and said like she killed his best friend, the Paisha's boyfriend.
Ezra.
But that's what he meant. That's what he meant by brother. But the father thing he just made up because he was like, I assumed you killed someone else's dad anyway, so like, it doesn't matter.
Okay, yes, that's right. I had made a note at the beginning of this book. I want to say I was like maybe 25 to 30% in. And I wrote down, I love how much I still don't know, because I love for somebody to like keep me hanging on, and I'm desperate to find out like who actually is Oren and what does Ro have to do with everything. Like, I love that. I got to a certain point where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, you have to start answering some questions at one point. And I just felt like she drug things out way too long. I don't know. And to sum up, I don't feel anything for Oren. Like, he's fine.
Yeah.
I don't hate him. Don't love him.
That's kind of the sum of my feelings as well. I didn't dislike him ever, except for like when we first met him. Then once we found out that he hated her, I liked him. Boom, liked him. Never got past the phase of liking him. Like, I was never super obsessed with their relationship in general.
And that's where you have to have the build up. Like, you have to convince us that we need to be absolutely head over heels in love with this man. She didn't do it. So we never had an opportunity to like really feel something for him. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're like creating a trend here. I think it's going to continue through the rest of the characters.
Unfortunately, I do think so too. So, I kind of already we talked about Hollis, we talked about Paisha. Is there someone, like, do you want to dive deeper on either of those real quick?
I did love Paisha. I was like, I guess happy that she got to be reunited with Ezra at the end, but then also I was like, is this too good to be true? Kind of feels that way. Feels a little contrived. Obviously, the next book is going to be about her and the deal that she made with the keeper of the realm, and Ezra has some kind of crazy backstory because I guess he was a god. It was intriguing. However, like, not to bury the lead, I won't be finding out what happens next with their story.
I agree. I actually loved Paisha. Again, they started out as enemies, so that's already a good start for me. And then they slowly developed. But one thing about Paisha that I love is that she has 2 different colored eyes.
What's that called?
And so does Susanna, heterochromia.
Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. So
Yeah,
true.
So I was already drawn to her.
So true.
But she was the only person that I felt like had a real personality, like actually played a big role in like planning everything. She was always, I don't know, she was kind of like the moderator between Oren and Deianira, like in the middle, even whenever she didn't like Deianira. But then she was like also had her own powers. I loved that she was the huntress. Like that to me was sick.
I thought the exact same thing. I felt like Paisha, the reason that I liked her so much is because she had levels to her. She was not Quill's mom, but essentially acting as Quill's mom. She lost her husband, boyfriend, whatever he was. She's also like indebted to the maestro and works for him, but she's like a badass, and she's also the huntress. And then now she's got this whole big thing where she's, I don't know, made a deal with the keeper of the realms. She had depth to her, and she had a lot of like different things going for her. And that's to me what set her apart from everyone else. Everybody else was just kind of like single faceted. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about her like kind of being the motherly role, but then she's also like the sister to Oren. And I had a big problem with Deianira whenever she was like, I can't just sit here and watch him love her while he's married to me. I was like, I wish I never heard that come out of this narrator's mouth. Like, what the fuck is she talking about?
Oh, yeah. Again, like, were we at that level at that point in time? Like, no, I don't think that we were. So it doesn't make any sense. And
no,
I
wasn't into it. But again, like, I feel like Paisha kind of saved the day. She was the one who eventually risked her life. Who knows what that deal was, to go with Quill and save Quill.
Yeah.
Who in my mind the entire time's name was Quinn. Like, I could not wrap my mind around her name being Quill to save my life. But I really enjoyed her little rendezvous with Ezra at the end, like just being back together. I was so happy for her. And I felt like it kind of like lightened her mood toward Deianira. I know she like allegedly had forgiven her, but like just seeing him in person again and kind of being able to be, I don't know, just be back in that place with him and Oren together, I feel like was a really good way to end things.
Yes, it was really, really sweet. And I was really happy for her. And then like Ezra says at the end, what does he say? Like, I would wait like 70 years to have an eternity with you or whatever it is. And then like it's revealed that they no longer live until 100 years old. They live just like a normal life now. So it's probably less than 70 years. I don't know. I thought it was really sweet. But do you want to go ahead and talk about Quill since we're lingering right above her?
Yeah, I think she was okay. She was cute at the beginning, like just being a kid, and she kind of tied everyone together because obviously Deianira exploited her, which I thought was really funny. Like, I liked when Deianira was cunning. Like, I loved whenever she was freaking milk of the poppying the mom so that she would fall asleep and like, you know, tricking Quill to like get people, just get information. She was like actually playing her role. But, and then I liked that Quill had powers. I actually at the beginning thought that Quill was going to be the life maiden because I was like, there's something about this kid that's important, but I couldn't quite figure out what. And then I felt really bad when I found out that she was the one having to influence all the emotions at the burlesque show.
Yeah. And let me ask you layers something. To Quill. Yes. Okay. So Deianira figures out that Quill has power and it has something to do with the feelings. She makes the bargain with the maestro, and she asked,
Maestro is the word.
oh yeah,
Sorry, just
maestro. Sorry, just being an idiot. She makes the deal with him, and she has a conversation with Paisha and says, "Will Quill help me out if it comes down to it?" And Paisha says, "Yes, like I'll talk to her." So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, she understands like Quill. She's gonna get the standing
Quill
ovation.
influences the emotion.
Right. Then later on, it comes in and she says, "Wait, you're telling me that Quill has the power to influence people's feelings?" And I was like, what did you think the power was?
She said you get to choose the emotion. What? I didn't like that scene where Quill was like, "Oh, this one's love and it's for you." Like that to me was so lame.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I felt like Quill had a lot of potential. She was obviously a really young kid, so it's not like she can't play a huge role in like a romance book. But like her having power was really cool, and the maestro and the king kind of vying for her was cool. So I liked that part of it. But again, like a lot of it was just like all of a sudden Quill loves Deianira, and then all of a sudden Deianira like would do anything for Quill, and there wasn't really a lot of in between.
Yeah, I thought she was like a really sweet addition to the story. I thought it was like sad that she's here watching this like burlesque show, and she's an 8-year-old little girl. Like, talk about inflicting trauma and like not age appropriate content for a little girl. So I felt bad for her, but yeah, I thought she was a sweet addition to the book. I actually don't know if I can recall another book that had like a child in it that served kind of like in this capacity, because she was kind of like really involved in the book and like in the story and everybody's lives. And like there were multiple times. Oh, I also felt bad for her. She got abducted 2 different times. The second time was by Rose, so she wasn't ever really like in real danger, but like getting abducted by the king and being scared and your friends having to come rescue you, like that was
she's had a tough life for real.
that was getting kidnapped was like my biggest fear when I was a child, so I can't imagine.
Was it actually?
Yeah,
I'm sure it was a big fear of mine too, but I don't really remember, like I don't recall it like as vividly as it sounds like you do. But it was wild that like they kept trying to get her, and like Ro had to keep stepping in to save her.
Yeah.
I had another thought that I was going to say, and now I can't remember. Oh, I really liked seeing Quill at the end whenever she was older and she was like more mature and kind of like with Elwyn at the end was really, really sweet.
Okay.
So I was happy.
Yes, same. I loved that part that we kind of like got to see. I did think it was a little crazy that it was like 20 years later and we just like step back in time. And I want to quickly talk about that if we want to talk really quick about Althea.
The amount of time it took me to realize that Althea and Thea were the same person because I was not reading the book was impressive. I was like, why would they have Althea and Thea? And then I was like, wait, maybe they don't. I swear it was like 50 or 60% through the book.
But you know
what? I was
what?
like, oh my God.
I don't think she must not have set it up in the right context. Like maybe she didn't do it to where it was like Althea introduces herself as I'm Althea, and then someone starts calling her Thea, so you can like make the connection. Because I feel like I also had a hard time with that. I was like, wait, who is Thea? I remember thinking that, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, like it's the same girl that we've already been introduced to.
Yeah.
So I think maybe she just didn't do a very good job like setting that up so that you were aware. But this is what I wanted to say. So like at the end, when Elwyn dies and they step through the portal to go, I don't know, guide her to, they never call it hell, but is what I'm assuming is hell, or I guess maybe
Death's
heaven.
court is what they call it. Yeah.
To Death's court. And Althea says like, so you're Death now? It's been 20 years. Did Paisha not like inform her of what was going on? Because if I'm her and I was not aware that he had become Death, I would have been like rambling out so many questions. And it just felt to me like she had questions, but not the right ones. The interaction was
Yeah,
just like
that was
strange.
wild. Yeah, because she was like, so you're actually death now. And it's like, what the fuck did you think he had been doing for 20 years?
Exactly. And like he steps through and you're not like, oh my God. Like, because you don't find out that they're coming to collect people until you're actually there in that moment. And like you see it happens, I guess, right? Well, I guess maybe you do, because throughout the book, like death has to come collect the souls of these people. But did Paisha go back to them? Did she explain everything? If she did, then she wouldn't have asked that question. And if she didn't, then she would have had way more questions. So I'm just like really confused about the entire interaction.
No, there was a lot of like, obviously the love thing was one. This is another one. There was a lot of things that like, I honestly felt like the author forgot that she explained, or like didn't really like put herself in the situation as well as like, as if she was reading it herself. So I don't know. I just implore authors to like read your completed work before you decide that it's ready, because there's so many contextual things that matter in the moment that like you were like, oh yeah, like I want to add this, but like, okay, so again, we thought we were all on the same page and now you're not on the same page is what it felt like.
Right. And like if you're going to add something, you need to make sure that all the threads that led you to that point have been thoroughly illustrated through the story, like leading up to this point that you've added this thing in. Yeah, I don't know. I just, one thing about me, you will not catch me reading any other of Miranda Lyn's series. It is crazy that this is her third like series, and it's like this. I don't want to say this bad, but like things should be better than they are at this point. This having been her third series, and like you can't convince me to read anything else from her. Like it's just, it should be better.
I agree. And the other things were written before this. So she's probably gotten, constructive feedback at this point.
Yeah.
And made changes accordingly. And so if this is what she's got to offer, like if this is the best she's got, I really don't want to read anything that's like lesser than this.
I completely agree. I don't think that she's done like an amazing job. Okay. The only other thing that I had to say about Althea/Thea is that I felt really bad for her when she had to make all of the weapons and was like slaving away for the maestro to do all of that. It was stressing me out so bad when they were like, can you fight the power long enough to like take a sip of water? I hated that part.
Yeah, I felt bad for her, but that's the only time that I felt like she had any depth. So I'm like, you kind of can't cut that part out.
Right.
You need some sort of suffering to make her like, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah.
Which is sad to say, but like write a better character and we won't feel that way.
Completely agree. So yeah, our last kind of character that I wanted to talk about from the bunch is Hollis. What were your feelings about him?
Sorry, I just like kind of flash everyone, but I'm just trying to get adjusted here. If you are noticing any glitches in this audio, I'm sorry. We have had to literally completely shut down our recording 3 times now and start over. So we're sorry, but we're doing our best. So for Hollis, I felt like he was genuinely the only character that had depth. And I don't know if it's because he had the relationship to her as far as like his sister was the maiden or whatever, or because he started off nice, like you said earlier, like you didn't really have to develop him.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for him, this book would have fallen so much flatter for me.
Totally. His character was the only one that drew any kind of like real emotion, like when he died, and then also again when he like left the note for her that she was given later on. I like, it brought me to tears. Like I thought it was really sad and really sweet. Other than that,
Yes.
I feel like this story like was lacking a lot. So thank God she wrote his character in. I did really enjoy how like immediately he was nice to her, and like you could only imagine, I don't think anybody else has ever treated her that way. Like people were just always maybe not even necessarily mean to her, but are so like standoffish with her and don't necessarily want to associate with her. So the fact that he was willing to be nice and like help her the very first time that they stumbled across one another, she was probably like really taken aback and like was like, what's his angle here? But I thought it was sweet.
Like, what's he? Yeah, I really, really enjoyed him. Like, I don't really have any notes on him. I think he was the perfect character in this book and the perfect addition to their whole family, because they have like the mother, like they have Elowen, then they have the, you know, kind of middle age, like not middle age, but the kids sort of. But then they have like the really young kids. So I think having an older person who's been through a lot and kind of has a different perspective was nice.
Totally. And it was interesting to have. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just wondering, did we find out why he was bound to the maestro?
I don't think so. I don't think we found out how, like what the terms of the agreements were for anyone except for Oren, right?
That's what it feels like to me, but I can't really remember.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Probably we didn't find out. Like that's what I'm assuming right now. It's like we probably didn't.
I think that's a safe assumption.
That's, you know, that's just one of the things. Like just add it to the list of things that we would love to change about this book.
Yes. And yeah, I would have really liked to know that about all of them, because like the making deals and stuff, like I really, really enjoy that kind of stuff. So that was something that I would have been interested to know. Okay. We've got a couple left here. So while we're talking about the maestro, what were your thoughts on him? And I'm really, really curious about this one to see if you felt the same way as I did.
Okay. Maestro is the only person who added a little flair, a little spice to the story, for me personally, because he was the one orchestrating everything. He was making the deals. He was having the burlesque show. The burlesque show, I'm sorry, is sick. Like, what a cool freaking part of the plot. And you have enslaved all these people to work in it, and you're enslaving these literally fans to come watch every night by toying with their emotions. Like, he's just a really cool character. Obviously, I get that he's the ops. Like, he's the villain, whatever. So I'm happy to dislike him, and I did very much so. But I still respect the shit out of him for just like, you know, doing what he does.
Okay. I felt the exact same way. I was so happy to have his character in this story, so much so that I wish that had he been different, like physically, I would have preferred he be the male main character.
Yeah, that's tough.
Immediately, I was like, okay, this is the path that we're headed down. So then when we got introduced to Oren, because this is like a well-known thing about me, I want the most powerful, the biggest and the baddest to be the male main character. And like Oren versus the maestro, it's not even close. Like Oren has
No, it's like this man is his slave.
Exactly. So I really wanted him to be the male main character. Like I understand how she took it to where she did, and like it all comes together in the end. But I actually think the story could have been developed differently and better had this been our male main character, because like I want to absolutely despise and hate the male main character and like be terrified of him going into it. And like Oren, like, no.
Yeah. I agree. Oh, one thing I didn't say about Oren that I was so into was the cellist of it all. Like him, like being able to be in the orchestra at the burlesque show, but then also performing on stage because he was so hot. Like, I forgot to bring that up. I just want to put that as a point towards, you know, me liking him a little bit more.
Okay.
He was.
I have to strongly disagree. I don't want a man to play a musical instrument. Like literally kill me.
Yeah, but you like bimbos. That's the thing. Like you are such a Cassian girl. Like you need them to be a little stupid. And a cellist is not going to do that for you.
100%. Like it's too soft. It's too emotionally stable. Like I can't do it. And I don't know, like I don't want a man to play an instrument like in college. If a boy had a guitar and they got it out like at a gathering of any kind, kill me. Like please, someone slit my throat. I would have to like leave because I can't. It gives me the ick so bad.
Okay, pulling out your guitar to play Fast Car at a pregame in college is different than being a fucking cellist in an orchestra. I'm sorry, it's different. And I agree, like it is cringe, but this particular scenario, like this is like the olden days, or what, I don't know when it was, but it's like kind of set in the old medieval times. There's like carriages and shit. So playing an instrument means you're rich and you're smart and you have time to like develop skills. And to me, that's admirable.
I hear you. I can't. It's gross to me. Another thing about Oren, not to just like completely jump back in, the fact that Daenerys like kicked his ass, and this is what doesn't make any fucking sense. When he sneaks into her bedroom, like he beats her, and that's how she like agrees, I guess, finally that she's going to marry him. Okay. Why then later on in the backyard, like he can't even make connections, like make a connection, get his fist to connect to her. She kicks his ass, like embarrasses him. Ick. That's disgusting. Like my man needs to be able to kick my ass, like, and it not even be close. Even if she's a badass, like it needs to be a fair fight. This isn't a fair fight. Like he needs to grow up.
No, I have no notes. I totally agree with that. 100%. But back to the maestro, like I totally agree with you. Like this guy, he's it for me. Like he's the reason for the whole entire debacle. Like if it wasn't for him, Daenerys wouldn't give a shit about the entire realm. So
totally.
He's like, you're welcome.
100%. But the thing about the maestro is that the way this whole book is like built up, this whole big thing, she's going to get their freedom. And I'm like, there's still like 250 pages after this. The way this turned into the biggest nothing burger, the way that it was a complete cop out, in my opinion, for it to just be like, oh, no one's seen or heard from the maestro. And then he just like died and they just like see him in death's court. And he's just like a little like wimp. He's death's slave and whatever. It turns into absolutely nothing. Like, no, you built this whole thing up, played it out, and then you dumped it in the trash and said like, okay, girls, we're done here. No, like he was meant to be in the story. Like, what do you mean he's nothing anymore? He just died in Oren's rage. Like, no, and she set it up perfectly to say like, no one's seen or heard from him. We've just like presumed that he's dead. Okay, great. Like this is his time to be like plotting.
He's been scheming. Yes.
And same thing like with Quill, like he never came after her afterward. And then also like somehow they're in death's court and they're like, oh, you're here. So like we know Quill is safe. And he's like, no, you don't. Like you don't know that. And then she's just like, oh, well, we had to convince Paisha that like he didn't do anything. And like he didn't. But like, yeah, how could he? He's in death's court. He's dead. How would he have been able to do anything with Quill to begin with that you would have been things don't make any sense. And he, like, justice for the maestro.
Justice for the maestro. I loved that he was evil until his bitter end in death's court. Like, he's like, oh, you want me to drag you into the pond where you never leave? Like, love. So I think that the maestro was robbed of his potential as a male main character.
That is honestly the perfect way to put it. Like he could have really been something great. And I just feel like she fumbled the bag. Like the idea was right there and she missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely missed the mark. But speaking of evil fucking characters, like Death himself, right? First scene comes on. He's like, boom, you're killing this person. She's like, he's beautiful. I hate him. I'm like, this is the male main character.
Same.
I was like, damn, that was fast. Like, this is kind of, I was like, this is a little on the nose. Like, death? What are you doing here, bro? Like, you're supposed to come later.
Right.
Yeah. So eventually, when Oren does become death and he gets these powers, I'm like, finally, something. Like, this has been waiting here this whole time. This could have started off as him just being death.
Right.
Or, like, this could have been, like, he knew that he was going to be death eventually. He knew that death was his dad and that this was going to be part of his future, but he just hid that from her, and that was a big point of contention. You know, just like this whole thing about how maybe he was going to control her one day and he never told her. Like, there was so much there in a bunch of different aspects that was never like developed.
I completely agree. I had the exact same experience. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to end up somehow being the love interest. It just like fell through. And I also don't understand how Oren like technically kills death. How did he know that he would be the one taking over, aside from just like assuming like, okay, this is my dad and I'm his son and I have his power, so naturally it would be me. Like, he didn't know that, but he stabs him with such authority. Like, I'm ready to take on my role as death. Like, bro, how embarrassing would it have been if the power did not shift to you?
If that didn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. And I actually have questions about that, because did he kill him, or did Daenerys like technically kill him, and then Oren had to do that thing to say like, I'm gonna be death now? Who knows?
My understanding was she weakened him enough that Oren was able to easily kind of like get the job done. I don't know, and things are just underdeveloped and not explained very well. I don't know. I have no idea.
Here's my question. When are we going to review a book on this podcast that is developed? This is like the fucking 5th one in a row, especially fantasy. Like, our rom-coms have been good. They've been perfect.
I am genuinely praying that the next one is it. And I'm like almost convinced I need to get off of Booktok and just go with my gut, because I influence myself way better than TikTok does. Like, the books that I've read this year that have been 5-star or like 4-star, 4.5-star fantasy reads, I just like chose of my own volition. They weren't really like influenced by anything. So like, TikTok fucking sucks. You guys, like, you need to get a grip. Seriously. Like,
seriously, what's happening in the fantasy world that we can't come to a consensus that a book is actually good when it's good? You guys are hating on books that are good, from what I've heard, and then the ones that actually are shit, you're shoving down our throats to where we feel like we have to review them.
Because you feel like this sense of FOMO, and it's like everyone says this book is good, so like I have nothing to lose here because it's popular, everyone's talking about it, I can be in on the jokes, and it's good, so I'm really going to enjoy my time here. Like, no, it's not happening. So like, where are the girls? Oh my god, you know those videos like, where's the girl who wakes up looking a mess? Do you know which ones I'm talking about? It's like that old lesbian. Oh my god, they're so funny. But anyway, where are the book talkers who are like giving good recommendations? I don't know. Like, isn't that your job? Step up to the plate.
Please, my God, drop a comment if you think that you have good book talk recommendations, and we will follow you and we will listen to you, because that's what we've been doing to pick our books from here. After SJM, you guys have led us down such a bad path, and I'm holding it against you just so that you all know.
100%. Honestly, this is a cry for help. If you're a book talker and you like have respectable opinions, let us know what we should be reading, and like, we'll follow you back. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. But up until this point, like, oh my God, get it together. Like, seriously, if I go on your page and you've recommended books like A Fate Eaten to Blood, The Bridge Kingdom, aka anything by Danielle L. Jensen. If you're like a JLA girly, like you're not to be trusted. I don't believe anything that you say. And please, like, seriously, get off my feed. Like, you're not welcome here. Where's the good girls?
This is what I want you to do. If you are interested in influencing us on our podcast, I need you to post the video of the list of SJM characters listed out. I need you to rank them. Then I need you to recommend 3 fantasy books to me that are not SJM. And then from there, we will decide whether or not you can be trusted.
Okay. It's like, that's our trials. That's a big trope that everybody really likes in books is trials. So this is our trial. You're like interviewing for a job. Like, please help us. And like, we're being genuine. We need good recommendations because thus far, like, things are falling flat and we want to be like providing our audience. Like, you guys, help us stop torturing the 3 people that listen to this podcast and actually listen to our episodes and read the books we recommend.
Literally, like, if you give one shit about Christopher, like, you will give us something good to read. Like, honestly, it is so fucked up of you guys to keep leading us down these like fucking rabbit holes of shitty books. But actually, like, the thing is, we're trying to cater to the people because we're like, oh, this book is very popular. Everyone's going to start reading it. We want to give them an episode that they can listen to after, because they're already going to read this book.
Right.
Maybe we should be just picking books based off of what we think they look like. Like, you know, judge a book by its cover every now and then decide what we should really do is have Katie read them first.
Totally.
Then once you read them, you can tell me if they're worth it, and then we'll review. By that time, it's already like, they're probably already like not even popular anymore.
Exactly. It's like the book comes out in January. By the time I've read it and I've told you that you should read it, like, it's August and the book's no one's talking about it anymore. So like, yeah, and honestly, by the time I find a book good enough, we're in 2025. I don't know, like
exactly.
It's not working out. Okay. We did have one very last person that I wanted to talk about. This will be quick, and that is Ro. What were your thoughts and feelings?
Loved. I thought that she was going to be my favorite character at the beginning whenever she was like friends with her and kind of like, you know, a little side character or whatever. And then she was a bitch to her whenever Oren came lurking, and she was like, now you're pretty comfortable in your little lies. Don't be seeking out truths that are going to make you hate your life. And then when we found out that Ro was like, you know, sent him to kill her, my jaw was literally on the fucking floor. I mean, obviously we find out later that she was just like, no, I just knew that it would end up okay.
Right.
And then you find out she's like the person that death has been lusting over for centuries. Oh my God. She's God tier. Like, she's such a queen. I do wish she had a little bit of a bigger role because I feel like she just kept getting thrown in on the sides. She deserved more.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting, because I feel that way. And then I also, honestly, I'm like, fuck this bitch. Like, Day should have stopped being friends with her a long time ago. Like, if that was someone who genuinely was my friend, no, like, fuck you. Like, but at the same time, slay. I loved her. Like,
so I know. So like the funny part was like, before I found out she was a goddess and she was doing all this shit, I was like, fuck you. Who are you to say like, oh, you're so comfortable. Then I found out she's a goddess and been alive for thousands of years. I'm like, oh, she's killed it. Like, this, she's literally being friends with Day out of the goodness of her heart and pure boredom. I have no choice but to be her biggest fan.
Yeah, I am. I do have a lot of questions about like why she couldn't just like tell Daenerys that she was the life maiden. And I also have questions about like, if she's in with the Keeper of the Realms, could she not just like, could the Keeper of the Realms not just like stop Death from doing what he's doing and like get rid of him? Feels like he had the power to do that.
Yeah.
And it feels like they just like never thought of that option, which is like, should be the first thing that you think of. Like, who is the highest up person that I could go to? Obviously, it's this man. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Nevertheless, we got to this point, and now Ro like has freedom. Who knows what's next for her? I guess she had to go back to the world where I guess all the other gods are living. I didn't quite follow the story of how they got from point A to point B. I don't know. I couldn't tell you the history.
Yeah, it was very much giving, which you didn't read from Blood and Ash, but it was giving JLA at the end in the sense that like all of a sudden she's trying to make all of these new things happen, but none of the other things that previously happened are established or like developed. And so you're like, okay, why do I give a shit about like, okay, perfect example is homeboy Ezra just decides that he's like a god and he's like, I remember everything, and then just leaves. Now she wants us to give a shit about that, but I simply can't because there's 18 different loose ends that are still trying to make their way to the front and center of my mind from the beginning of the book. And I'm like, I can't care about that and the Keeper of the Realms and this new deal that Paisha's doing because we just got to Death's Court. We just got here.
Yeah. I think that Miranda Lyn would have a lot of success exploring the story of the gods and goddesses that she set up for this universe and the history between them. Something like that, which is a very similar, if you've read The Song of the Marked, then you understand what I'm saying. If not, you should read that because it is all about like gods and goddesses and like the wars between them, and it's very, very good. But I think Miranda Lyn would have a lot of success, or maybe if she learned how to like do this the right way, she would have a lot of success with something like that. I felt like it was a good concept, a lot of questions, and maybe we should cut her some slack. Like, this is book 1 in this series of standalone books, so there's a lot that still like has to happen, but she introduced
I'm not cutting slack. Like, literally, you can't introduce the coolest concept on the last 20 pages.
Totally. I agree with that. Like, what now I'm intrigued, but like you've taken me through this journey that like I don't want to be here anymore. So I'm sorry, I can't care about this at all.
Yeah, no, totally. Do you want to move on to our next little section?
Yes, I would love to.
Wonderful. What's next? Because I don't have my computer on my lap anymore.
Okay. So next we're going to play favorites. So we'll do favorite character. Who was yours?
Hollis.
Okay.
Yeah, I was between Hollis and Paisha, and then I decided Hollis was the only person that really ignited any amount of emotion in me, so I felt like I had to give it to him.
Okay.
What about you?
So funny. My favorite character was obviously Boo. And I wanted to ask, what kind of dog?
I didn't know he was on the table.
Well, that's okay. Backing up. I wrote maybe Paisha, and then I put maybe Hollis. So I feel like we're like similar wavelengths there for the exact same reasons that you said. But Boo, like the thing is, like, I don't feel strongly about Hollis or Paisha, so like Boo is the obvious answer. Just trying to like be silly. But what kind of dog do you think that Boo is?
I don't remember. I know that he has like a white nose and a tan coat, and that's all I pictured. But the body style I pictured was like an Irish setter, kind of.
Okay, I was picturing a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, so I feel like that's not like too far off.
I mean, small.
Yeah.
Mine's bigger.
Yeah.
But the same, like, I imagined long hair for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Just curious. I thought that was interesting. Okay. Next, we've got favorite scene. What was yours?
Favorite scene was the note from Hollis on the wedding night.
Okay.
Was so sweet. I literally teared up. Mm-hmm. I loved getting just to like hear his voice again, which I was actually reading that part, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just loved getting to hear from him again and like have him be a part of the story. I obviously didn't realize he was going to be part of the story after that. Right. So that to me like felt very final, and I loved it.
Yeah.
What was your favorite scene?
Mine was at the very beginning where it like come to find out that the person that she was tasked to kill was the king. The way I was like not expecting that at all.
I am so glad you brought this up. At that point, I literally was like, this is about to be the fucking best book ever. Like, this just like took like up the ante. Everything is going great. Like, I was so excited. And there actually were a couple of moments like that for me too. Like, not
Yes.
just that one, but like a lot of different ones. Like, I loved the deal she made with the maestro where she was actually involved in the burlesque show. Like, those were really good. All of those trials were good. I feel like we've been talking so much shit about this book throughout this podcast that we forgot to mention the highlights. So if you have any other highlights, I would love to talk about them.
Yeah, no. So to me, same exact thing. So like you find out that she kills the king, and I was like, she really like snuck this one past me. And then you go pretty much directly into then Oren has snuck into her bedroom and they agreed to get married. And I'm like, what is this? Like, that's disgusting. Why is she calling him icky? Like, that is the worst. Surely to God not. I'm like, this book just like took a complete nosedive. Like, we're going down. And then it's like, okay, he actually conned her, and the person that she's marrying is not really the person that she's married. And I was like, oh my God, she brought me right back up. And now I'm like, I'm obsessed. This book is going to be so good. No, fell completely flat. I loved exact same thing, like the deal that she made with the maestro. I loved, even though I also felt like it was irrelevant, like the Lady Visha of it all, where you have to be like really careful with your words. And then like come to find out she can't she can't bind you unless she has that book. Like, I thought that was great. I loved Paisha's power, that she could like seek things out, but it didn't work if she had never like seen or heard of anything before. So there were like a lot of highlights in this book, and I guess we'll talk more about it maybe like in our final ranking. But like, I agree with you. We've talked a lot of shit, but like, I kept writing in my notes, I have a lot of issues with this book, but I'm still actually really enjoying myself and like enjoying the story that she's built here.
Yeah, because it would go up, it would have its ups and downs. Like, there would be something that I'm like, this is such a good part. Like, even the part where you find out that Ro, where you think that Rose sent Oren to kill her, like that to me, I was like, this is a good scene. She does know how to write really good scenes. It's just she doesn't know how to string them together.
Yeah, that's a
it's
great
the
point.
in between that she can't do.
100%.
So, as if we haven't already, let's talk some shits. What was your least favorite scene?
Killing Hollis has to be my least favorite scene, and for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it was sad, and like I didn't want him to die, but also, come on, like step up your game. If this was Sarah J. Maas, the female main character would have figured out a way to get out of this, and everybody would have been safe and sound. Maybe if they would have been safe and sound for a moment, but she would have gotten them out of it. And it just felt like she just kind of like gave up on this concept a little bit too quickly. And I don't necessarily feel like it had any real like meaning to it. I guess then they get to miss Hollis and they get to see him again, and he gets to be reunited, and they get to like actually bear witness to that. It just felt like a cop-out to me. I don't know. I hated it. What about you?
Interesting. I actually liked that scene a lot. Not because Hollis died. Obviously, I was sad about that, but I was just so happy to give a shit about something that I was like, wow. But I liked that. I was hoping that you weren't going to bring this up earlier, but you always do this to me. Like, you always bring up my least favorite scene. I hated when they were fucking fighting in the yard, like mongrels. Like, what the fuck were they doing? Like, it was funny for a second that everyone was like placing their bets and stuff, you know? But why can you beat up your boyfriend?
Yeah, it's ew. Like, that's disgusting. Why is he weak?
No, why is he weak? Why are you like more developed? Here's the thing. If she was like Death's Maiden and her thing was not like slicing people's esophaguses, let me pause right here. Your esophagus is not the front part of your throat. Okay? This is just a little anatomy lesson from Miranda Lyn. When you slice through someone's throat and she literally said, drown in your own blood or whatever she said, something of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because it goes down your esophagus. Like, I wish I had my phone not recording because I literally took a screenshot. She was like, I couldn't get a breath down because of the damage he had done to my esophagus. I'm baffled. I'm totally baffled. Like, I know I'm not like, I don't have a good perspective of like what the public thinks an esophagus is.
Uh-huh.
But it would take a quick Google.
Uh-huh.
Anatomy of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
Super quick. What goes to your lungs?
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, because it's surely not the esophagus.
Yeah. Anyway, if she, like, what I think is okay in books whenever like girls are better than men is like if there's a skill involved. So if she decided like I'm not going to be like a throat slitter, I'm going to be like an archery person and I'm going to kill them from afar so I don't have to be a part of it. And then she's like way better at him at doing archery and all of a sudden he needs to learn how to do archery. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine to be better at someone than a skill, but I can't have my female main character beating up the male main character.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And it's just like, how do you recover from that? Especially like if you're the woman in that scenario, like you have to break up with him if you just beat his ass.
Especially like this didn't happen before all of this, but then like come to find out he like talks a lot of shit in the bedroom. Like, she just beat your ass in front of your family. Mm-hmm. And then like she like starts to fight back and he calls her good girl and I'm like, you no longer have the authority. Like,
no, like she wears the pants in this relationship. Like, she kicked your ass.
Correct. Yeah.
And especially when he's like, I can tell what you're doing. Like, I can tell you're holding back. Like, baby, yeah. Like, she needed to because you were getting your ass handed to you while she was doing so.
Pathetic.
Mm-hmm. It was gross.
Totally pathetic display.
Mm-hmm.
So I hated that. That was my least favorite scene. What was your least favorite character?
My least favorite character? Probably... I don't want to say Elowen. Like, is that a cop-out? Because I feel like I just didn't like feel anything for her. But maybe I'll say this. I think that having like people be able to actually return to their dead loved ones, I don't like it. Like, it feels too on the nose, like a little bit too good to be true because
too easy.
Yes, yeah. You need to like pull on people's heartstrings. Like, death is a real thing in this life, and like mourning and grief and all of that people have to go through. And that's how you like intrigue people to your story or like get them to feel emotions about your book. And when it's just like so easy, like, oh no, actually, I'm just going to go live with him in death's court and we're going to be completely reunited together again. Like, that's no fun. I don't know. I don't like that.
So she didn't pull your heartstrings whenever she said death is just a stop on this crazy ride we call life or whatever she said.
Unfortunately, no, it didn't tug at the old heartstrings.
I swear to God, a sentence like that was, I screenshotted it, but again, like I was stupid, forgot that I needed my phone for other things. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Mm-hmm. Like, death should be actually have a consequence. I did enjoy that she could like let the souls go back to be reincarnated.
Yes.
If they wanted, but I don't think it should be like, if you want, you can just like live in death's court and it'll all be hunky dory and everyone can live together. Like, isn't that supposed to be heaven?
Exactly. Like, now all these people, because she goes on and on and on at length about how every single person who lives in this world like is a piece of shit and has done like shady shit and is just like a bad person. Now they were living in the equivalent to hell, but then like we got new leadership, and so now we all live in heaven. I don't know, like, she molded this story to fit whatever narrative she was like telling at the time, because
at the time, and babe, she had different places. Like, she was like, at this point in time, we're telling this story, and then later on, like it's not even gonna feel related. That's how I feel. Like the beginning of this book and the end of this book, if you had told me that they were from the same even author, I would be like, what?
Yeah. It feels like two different people.
It was crazy.
Someone wrote the beginning and someone wrote the ending, especially because so many things that we developed in the beginning completely fell off. And then we started picking up on things that were only very, very, very briefly introduced at the beginning. I don't know. I didn't like it. So I don't know if there's anything else to say, but is there one thing about the plot or the book in general that you hated or would change that you haven't already said so far?
Yeah, so she had the characters go on like tangents. Like literally at the end, like the one that I can think of most recently was like her and Paisha. And Paisha's like talking about how she wants to like, are we sure we need to go right now to find Oren? And she goes on like a multi-paragraph like monologue about not just about like why we need to find him, but like he's my everything, he's this, he's that, like blah blah blah, and like using all these like weird almost quotes from things. And then Paisha's like, okay, well then let's go. Like it's like we just move on. And the same thing would happen with her and Oren, also because we didn't like really feel the buildup of their relationship. It stood out to me a lot that like he would go on these like really long monologues about how much he loved her and how much she's everything to him in the most inopportune times, because then she wouldn't even have a chance to respond. It's like, okay, we got to move on to the next thing. It was so weird.
I didn't write the same thing, but I'm talking about the same thing. She is fighting for her life. She wants so bad for the girls on TikTok to use like a thing of fan art with like some really dramatic music and then do like a quote of like, I would go through the heavens and the earth to get to you. Like she's dying for that. And she put about 600 different quotes for people to choose from. And it wasn't like that. Lines like that need to be like a one-liner. They need to be like the end of a chapter, the end of a conversation. Like, no, she would put about 16 in a row that you have to choose from that are like really deep and like really metaphorical.
Yes, she would string them together. Metaphorical is the perfect word. She would string all these metaphors together. And then, but the thing is like, it wouldn't be a high stakes environment. There would be no reason for you to be saying this to somebody.
Exactly. And I felt the exact same way when it was lighthearted, supposed to be like bantery, sarcastic conversations. The banter was way off the charts. Like, I love to have two people kind of like joking around with each other and like poking fun, whatever. It was so corny and so like cringy millennial type jokes, like especially at the end of that very last conversation where they're like at dinner with Paisha and Ezra and Oren and Deyanira, and there's like all this talk about like Paisha's sausage, and they're like, oh, I bet I can guess what he just whispered in your ear, and something about his sausage, and like,
yeah, I think there was definitely a lot that could have been better about that. Like the banter needs to be like, I love whenever things are funny and like lighthearted, but there still needs to be a level of intelligence there for me to actually think that it's funny. Like if I had to read the words fluffy bottom one more time, I was going to throw my phone across the fucking room.
The nicknames in this book, you got Fluffy Bottom, you got Icky, and then she would call Quill Kid, and like, I know that's not necessarily.
And then they always said old man too, which was like,
it feels like Disney Channel, or like,
yeah,
she's just trying a little bit too hard. I absolutely hated the dialogue between all of the characters, but like, I'm so glad you picked up on that too, with the droning on and on. Like, if someone was saying that to me, I would be like, okay, like it was cute for a second, but like, shut up.
And he was saying this shit before they ever even fucked. Like, what do you mean? You're like, oh, you're my everything. I would go to the ends of the earth for. No, what do you mean? What do you mean? We don't know each other.
You guys literally never fell in love. So
No. It's crazy. It's totally crazy.
yeah.
So I guess we can move on.
Yeah.
So what do we have next? What's next on our roster?
We have hot takes. I don't have any aside from wishing that the maestro was the male main character. Did you have a hot take?
Yeah, and this I guess technically this shouldn't be a hot take.
Okay.
And this is not just directed at the author of this book that we're reviewing. This is for everybody who writes any spice. I'm going to need you to stop referring to someone's vagina as a slit.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
I will get on my knees and beg. Okay? I don't want to hear the word slit one more time. You can do anything else. You can be creative. You can make something up. I'm not going to do slit. We're not doing slit.
I completely agree. And I don't necessarily, I can't put my finger on what it is about the word, but like, no. I'm in complete agreement with you. I hate it.
Yeah. I hate it so badly. But that's kind of my only hot take. Like, I just haven't seen that in a really long time. And so it like really took me aback, and I just had to say something about that.
Okay, great. I think that's a really good one. So let's move on to our final segment, which is our overall thoughts. So we'll do stars and chili peppers. So what were your ratings?
Okay, I'm going to start with chili peppers because I have something to say here.
Okay.
So my previously discussed and established chili pepper like preference is 2 to 2.5. Like somewhere between there. I'm totally happy. There's no need to do more than that. And this to me was maybe a 2.5, maybe.
Okay.
My issue with it though is the point at which it developed. We had literally zero spice, nothing. And then the last 30% of the book is like sex. Where was the sexual tension? Where was the buildup? Where was them like falling in love and like having forbidden sex, and they were enemies that they shouldn't, they shouldn't be attracted? Like, where was that part of the enemies to lovers spice? I don't give a shit after they fall in love if they have sex or not. I couldn't care less.
Exactly. Like after they've already fallen in love, it needs to be really spaced out. Like we're not that invested anymore unless something like really crazy happens that leads you to like another sex scene. But yeah, and it wasn't in like a style where it's like you have all this build up and finally at the end, like I would rather have build up, have one really, really, really good scene at the end, like one and only one, then have 3 or 4 shoved in at the very last second, and also that weren't necessarily that detailed. Like they were kind of quick, and I just felt like, meh, I didn't necessarily like feel strongly toward it.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I liked the way she wrote them. The amount of detail was enough if there had already been that big, like, perfect sex scene that like we've been waiting for and dying for, but first of all, we never felt the build up. So we never cared actually that they were having sex. And second of all, there was never a one that was detailed enough to kind of satiate that. So then they were all just kind of like half-ass little, I don't know, just like kind of throwaway sex scenes. That would have been great if we'd already had some sort of, big climax in the middle.
Yes.
But we never, it was just like, it was almost like she was like, oh shit, I forgot to write any sex into this book. Let me do that real fast.
Right. And she kind of like threw him in a couple at the end just to kind of like satisfy. That's really interesting because like I must be reading books that have a lot of spice, because I said one chili because of the level of detail. And I actually thought about,
that's a good point. Yeah.
I thought about changing it to do like maybe a 1.5, potentially a 2 toward the end. But then I just like kind of went with my gut and just said,
Yeah.
the detail, like, because I waited so effing long to get to this point, and then I was really let down. Like when they started to go to the bathhouse, I was like, okay, this is like, things are going to get good here.
Here it comes. Yeah.
And then I was kind of let down. And then there was like a couple other scenes that I was like, okay, well, maybe this one's going to be a little bit more. And I didn't feel that way. I don't know. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
again,
Maybe that's a good point. I could downgrade it to a 2 based off of what
you
you're
don't have
saying.
to downgrade
I could
anything.
no, I think you're right because I was like teetering between, but I think you're right. Like 2 really makes more sense based off of like what you're saying.
Okay. What about your star rating?
Oh, okay. So overall, I'm going to give this book 3 stars.
Okay.
I don't know. Like there were points where I was like, oh, this would be like a 4-star book. And then she would do something to piss me off that like just kind of yanked it away from me. So 3 is what I'm going to go with. But sorry to backtrack. I forgot to say like how much, when we were talking about things that we loved, when they had just had sex in Death's Court and then Death appears and is like, I do love our little games. Immaculate. Like, give me more shit like that. Like, I know she has it in her.
Exactly.
I know she had it in her to give us a 4 or 4.5-star book based off her concepts alone. So for it to fall this flat was like really, really devastating to me, especially because it's the only thing I'm reading right now.
Yes. Okay. I completely agree with you. And as I was reading this book, like I said, I was like, I don't really like this. I don't really like this, but I was still really enjoying the ride. And I was like, I'm still probably going to rate this 4 stars. Like, I'm really liking it. And then I just hit a wall and I was like, okay, actually, like, I can't do this anymore. And like this book, I can't in good conscience tell people that this is a 4-star book because it just absolutely isn't. So I also said 3 stars. We also rated A Fate Inked in Blood and I think Fall of Ruin and Wrath 3 stars. This book, in my opinion, was better and I had a better experience reading it than those books. I just felt like she spent way too much time on things that like didn't matter and leading us up to events that weren't relevant like at all and ended up like should have just never been talked about. But here's some things that she should have been doing instead. Number 1, building the romance. Number 2, giving visuals because like I can't picture anything in this book. At the beginning of the book, there was like no dialogue. It's just Daenerys and she's like sneaking around killing people and she doesn't talk to anybody. And then 4 was the spice. Like, come on, you've led us to this point. Give us the details. Like, give us one good one. And then like you can be free of these chains. Like you don't have to keep giving it to us anymore. I don't know.
We'll take the little snippets afterward, but you gotta give us one.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that like she spent so like much time. Whenever you originally told me that there was a part that you just kind of hit a wall, I really thought it was whenever she first got to the Syndicate house because the way nothing happened there for chapters and chapters and chapters, there just had to be a better way to get her to do this deal with the Maestro and with Oren quickly because the more time we spent in the book, the more high stakes things happened, but we didn't ever get to expand on them because we'd already spent 300 pages at the Syndicate house doing fucking nothing.
I literally wrote, this book was about 300 pages too long. I also put that I don't like when it's just like I was at the Syndicate house. Okay. And then a week later, like I had been hanging out there and like I was looking for my weapon and it's like, I don't care. Like at all.
She could have put a couple chapters like fall, this happened. Spring, I've really come around to the people at the Syndicate house. This happened. But instead, she wants to go to the inn and jump 20 years because we weren't able to develop anything between.
It was a lot. I have one final thought that I have to get out that's been bothering me. I'm assuming that when these people were bound to the maestro, they had some kind of salary. Someone was taking care of them. Then they're not bound to him anymore. And they're like, you know what we should do? Build a bathhouse that's so elaborate and intricate. We're going to have to get like all this specialty like glass and stuff. And all these, we're literally building a building. And it's so crazy. It's got like multiple tubs in it. We're going to build this pump and it's going to pump water from the stream. With what money are they operating this organization?
That's a good question, because Ellen is the maestro's sister, but they didn't know he was dead. So she didn't get any of his earnings.
The whole time I'm like, I'm just assuming that they're being paid some kind of salary and that's how they're like keeping all of this up. And God, I don't want to get down a tangent because we need to end this episode, but like there's all these people involved with the syndicate house, but like that was a whole thing that we never got any more insight to. Like, who are they helping? What are the other people's stories? Who else is involved in this? Like, we don't know. All you know is that it exists and you know these 5 characters. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. There's a lot left unsaid that needs to like bring its way to the front.
Yeah.
But I'm, like you said in the beginning, like I'm never going to find out what happens in the rest of this story. And I have absolutely no desire to pick up a single book by her again. And if I was in a different place in my life where all I did was listen to audiobooks and read stuff and like it was my favorite pastime and all of that, maybe I could see a world in which this impressed me. But at current, I seriously, like, I don't know why this was recommended to me.
Same. I'm sorry. I'll take the blame for that. Like
No, it's not your fault. This is a book that you saw many, many, many times.
I was duped.
Not just TikTok, but like Goodreads had good stuff, which Goodreads always has something good to say. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, it's very, very interesting how we got here. Hopefully the next one will be better. So what do we have up next?
Okay. So I'm really excited about our book for August. This one, again, is all over TikTok. And let me tell you, I have kind of found a new group of girls who I really like and respect, who have good opinions. I have not seen a single bad review for this book. They have all been like, no, I'm obsessed. This is like the new hot book that everybody recommended and I didn't want to read it. I was skeptical, but let me tell you, like, it's everything. You have to read it. So we're going to give it a shot again. If this one fails, like seriously, we're not doing Booktok books anymore. I'm just going to pick whatever I want us to read. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to literally do rom-com so that we can finally rate a book 4 stars. Like, this must end. Anyway, that said, the book is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. And let me just say, don't look at the cover because we're judging books by covers. This one's bad, like really bad. And don't look, like, just open straight to page 1.
Gonna be tough to avoid. Okay. Gonna be tough, but I will do my best. So Quicksilver, I'm so excited. I haven't heard one thing about this book, so it's seriously like it could be anything. It could be about anything, and that's the way I like it.
Yep.
So TikTok's had good things to say. Goodreads has had good things to say.
Yes.
But again, just like we told Hannah Brown, just like we're telling the TikTok girls all the time, we will be the judges of that. So if you're interested to hear what we have to say, you can tune in August and we'll let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So unless you have anything else, I think that's got us.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in another 3-star episode of The Club. We're so happy to have you here. We're available on YouTube and we're on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you find your podcasts. Please feel free to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Drop us a comment. We would love to have you there. And subscribe to our channel on your favorite podcast platform. And we will see you on the next one. Bye.